I know the chairman will come back in just a moment here. We've got one other meeting that's going on at the same time. So may have Senator Butler roll in a few minutes too. But the way I usually like to do this is I'm gonna have you just introduce yourself, then tell me a little bit about kind of what you're doing as a board and then what your legislative needs are. And we have most of that in front of us already. So if you want, and if you'll push the button and have it light up green, that'd be perfect.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I am Phyllis Johnson. I am the Executive Director of the Mississippi Board of Nursing. With me here today is my CFO and Chief of Operations, Shan Montgomery, and the Director of the Practical Nursing Education Program, Dr. Priscilla Burks. As the Board of Nursing, we regulate the nurses in the state of Mississippi. We make sure that they're practicing competently and efficiently, and we issue licenses to those individuals that sit for the NCLEX exam to become RNs and LPNs in our state. The Office of Nursing Workforce is under our auspice, and you also graciously legislated that to us a few years back. And so today I want to hit on the high points of what's important to our agency, and that is workforce and staffing. So, Mr. Chairman, and I think this is the co-chair that just walked in. If I may, 4 areas of importance. We have developed and given you a packet that is more detailed than what I'm going to give you. I'm only going to hit the high points that we see as priority in our agency. And those areas of importance deal with workforce and staffing. On the workforce, the scholarship amounts and the USDA grant. Scholarships were awarded via the Office of Nursing Workforce from the funds received from the legislature to address the nursing workforce issues in our state. Over 3,000 scholarship recipients have benefited from these funds. The return on the investment is that these recipients must work in the state of Mississippi for a specific time frame. We have provided in your packet also a copy of that, as well as the last 3 years. We did put that in the packet, I believe. The last 3 years that shows how those scholarships have been awarded, how much money has been awarded, and how many nursing programs have participated in that. The awards for FY24 and FY25 will be in excess of $1 million. When you look at this graph, you will see that 24 recipients have completed this, are in this program. 5 have completed the work agreement, which is the payback to work in the state of Mississippi. And we have 19 that are still completing those requirements that are working in the state of Mississippi. When you look at the USDA grant, the purpose of that grant came about during COVID. And it supports those nursing programs with the collaboration and integration of advanced telecommunications technology that facilitates the interconnectivity and enables the efficient utilization of shared resources. The aim of that program is to meet the educational needs of today's nursing students. We have several schools that are participating in that, as you can see, and it has been very beneficial in meeting the educational needs of the students in the state of Mississippi in those programs. The board manages over 88,000 nursing licenses across the state. This number represents a 5% increase between 2022 and 2023. And you will see that we have approximately 52,796 RNs, 13,077 LPNs. And with our nurse practitioners, there are over 7,271, nurse anesthetists, 1,051, and nurse midwives, 30 in our state that are actively practicing. When we look at the staffing issues, the Board of Nursing, which is really important because we're the largest regulatory agency in the state of Mississippi, we lost 9 staff members over the last 8 months. Why? Some of those transitioned to private sector for large salary increases, other for educational opportunities and added fringe benefits. The legislature reduced the number of staff in the past 2 years and is recommending another reduction for FY25 based on our vacancy rate. The FY24 salary target established by LBO did not fully fund those positions. The annualized cost to fund all 41 positions was a little over $2.9 million. However, the salary target was only set at $2.7 million. The agency began the FY with a $263.270 shortfall in its salary target. We are requesting that 3 of the 4 positions recommended for elimination be restored, and that funding is also restored to the salary target for these positions. The board does agree to the elimination of the clerk position, which has a salary of $15,733. This will reduce our head count to 40. That position has been very difficult to fill based on that salary. Looking at the salary progression, we applaud the SEC2 for what has been implemented as a result of that, because it has given us a little flexibility in how we can look at salary increases for our staff. So we are very appreciative of that. The board is seeking salary increases for its staff members. We are requesting funding to award the maximum salary progression of 10% for all of its professional nursing positions. We have approximately 6 positions that have to be filled by nurses. The salary progressions for the remaining staff positions were originally requested at an average of 4% to be awarded based on experience, training related to duties of the employee, longevity at the agency, and performance reviews. The amount that has been requested for progressions and a position reclassification is being modified from what was originally requested to reflect staffing changes that have occurred and to also reflect the agency's salary strategic plan, which we also have for you. The modified request includes a salary progression of 4% to employees not receiving a progression during FY24 and awarding a 10% progression for all nursing staff and awarding an average of a 1% progression for approximately half of the staff for any educational classes completed. The modified request is also seeking to be able to offer higher salaries than the starting salary for the vacant positions. This will greatly assist us in recruiting and then retaining employees. The recruitment plan provides hiring nurses at the market rate, as well as the salary, and hiring the remaining positions at a rate of 10% above the starting salary. This plan can be funded without changing the original salary request of $187,327. Other budget concerns: we are seeking to replace 2 vehicles in FY25, while only 1 was included in the base budget. No vehicles were replaced at our agency in FY23 due to the state contract limitations and the shortages in the marketplace. Of the 5 vehicles that we have at the Board of Nursing, all have approximately 100,000 miles. 1 vehicle was authorized for replacement in FY24. However, there is some doubt that we will be able to replace that vehicle. And I will conclude by saying that the board has sufficient funds to meet our requested budget. And with that, I yield for questions, Chairman.
Okay, thank you for the detailed information there. So the budget we have in front of us, I guess modified by what your numbers are than what you've kind of described here. So the one I'm looking at request 211,963 increase for the 30 positions that were filled at the time that this was prepared. And then you've also said that your 6 main staff originally wanted 10% increase, and then the remaining ones were set for 4%. And I understand that if you could, what I think would be good for us would be to have a breakdown of those, and including the position you're kind of requesting, or at least stating that you could eliminate in that clerk position, so that we just have numbers to kind of look at on this.
Okay.
In the request that I had, it did say that you were seeking to replace 2 vehicles. So that, I guess, did get updated, from Tracy's work here. You mentioned some things here about the increase in the number of licensees. I know for a good bit of time, we had a large number of travel nurses kind of leaving the state and going other. How do you feel that has changed here recently? Do you feel we're starting to see some of the travel nurses kind of return back, or do you think we still have a number of our nurses leaving the state for higher pay?
I think, and I can't base it on specific data, but just from at the national level and participating in national research and things of that nature, we have seen the travel nursing decrease somewhat since COVID. A lot of that has had to be with nurses are becoming entrepreneurs and they're opening their own businesses. They're not working in hospital facilities, but they're working. They're working at setting up their own jobs in clinics, doing other things. And it's because of a work-life balance that has been achieved and the flexibility in being able to determine when and how they work. So I do think that, and we've seen the salaries with travel nursing has come down somewhat as a result of that. There are still some travel opportunities available, but I don't think it's as warranted or as specific as it was during the COVID period.
And you also made reference to some of the funding that came about after COVID. Both federal and state funds were used to try to increase our nursing numbers. And we're looking this year at potentially trying to find some ways to maybe prop that up even a little bit more if budget allows that. But there's been one concept mentioned to me about virtual nursing, in areas that have kind of extreme shortage. Because I know in our original like workforce development language that we put out, we did not have any provision there for any virtual nursing. Have you at the board seen or heard any concept about that? I know how I think that would look, but can you tell me, from board standpoint, how you think that might be a benefit or not be a benefit?
I think it would be a benefit. When you talk about virtual nursing, it's really primarily telehealth. Telehealth, I worked at the VA and retired from the federal government, and we initiated telehealth prior to that even becoming as important as it is now. And it is definitely needed. You do the same thing as you would as if you were in the actual setting with the individual. But what it does is it provides those opportunities for a greater outreach to reach those patients who can't travel in or who live in our rural areas of the state. But by virtual nursing, they will be able to carry on the same thing that they would do in a clinical setting or even in a hospital setting via that mode of reaching out to them virtually. Okay.
And so, again, getting the numbers I think would be good. I want to mention one other thing too, as far as the board makeup. The current board, as you kind of said right now, RNs, FNPs, how is the current status of the board as far as the credentials go?
We have 13 appointed board members by the governor, and those include 4 LPNs, they include RNs, nurse practitioner, and we have one consumer member.
Okay.
And one physician.
Okay.
That's usually appointed by, not by the governor, but it is in statute for us to have one physician.
And again, at this time, you have 30 of the 40 positions filled.
We have approximately 30. We have 40 pins.
40 pins, but how many are?
9 of them are not filled right.
Okay, so you're up to 31 then that are filled. Okay. So any other questions from committee members?
Salary sheets, if you need that up.
Yeah, there were
people that are already there, the ones that we were proposing to increase.
In your bill, there's a in section 3, there's I guess $1.56 million that's for the Office of Nursing Workforce. Are y'all requesting to amend that amount or keep it the same?
We would like the 1.5.
Okay, so no changes. Okay, are there any other changes in y'all's bill y'all are requesting? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Johnson, thank you. You may have mentioned this and I missed it, but out of your staff, are they all nurses or are they what?
Yep, we have 6 positions that are nurses.
Okay.
The rest of those are non-nurse PNs.
Okay. And your request for raises or progressions would be for everybody, including the nurses?
Including the nurses, yes.
Okay. And are the nurses are in, do you know where they stand in are they minimum on the SEC squared? Are they closer to market. Did you use some of your last year, did you use your progression money to plus up any particular group of employees, or did you use it across the board?
We tried to use that money across the board to give all of the staff based on performance reviews.
Mhm.
That 4%, we were given that range, a 4% increase because of the low salaries. Now, we have some nurse positions that we have not filled. One is a nurse investigator. We have one on compliance. We have our director of the Office of Nurse and Workforce. Those positions are somewhat difficult to fill. We also have the director of practical nursing education, the director of the advanced practice nursing program. Those are nurse positions, and my position is the nurse position. However, we've had difficulty recruiting because nurses, those salaries are so low, the nurses can go out and find a job and work for more money in those positions. So we've tried to look at being equitable across the board in trying to give all staff some additional salaries. And I think with our nurses, that's the one that we are probably having to look really hard and trying to figure out how we can recruit and retain nurses that are needed in those positions to do what we need them to do at that level.
Yeah, we've dealt with this with several other agencies. I mean, they should be, because of SEC squared, the nurses shouldn't be out of the range between the minimum and maximum amounts. They should be at least at a level where they're somewhat competent salary-wise in what you can get private sector and other government agencies. So that hopefully we've corrected all that with SEC squared. But I do know, and again, this is not unique to you, but we have worked hard to get nursing programs established in the last few years. We spent a lot of money getting things in place. And I think the chair maybe alluded to that, really thinking that in a matter of time, we're going to start seeing more nurses because the programs are up and running to a large degree. We've got a few schools that are working on facilities, but because of what was done with ARPA funds and some other general funds to plus those up, hopefully it's just a matter of time where you're going to have more options to get nurses out there, because we've been hearing this for a couple of years, but I think hopefully the dam's about to break on that. We're going to be a lot better off with nursing. But I do think, just to conclude, that it may be a little difficult because it's just a numbers game right now, but hopefully, their salaries should be within a range because that's what SEC squared did. And we don't want you rating from another program to get their nurses and vice versa. We don't want them rating your nurses. So their salaries should be pretty competent or equitable across state agencies as we go forward. Yep.
Well, if I may, we tried our best to look at that from an equitable standpoint and then comparing market and what those nurses do in those roles. And to agree with you, we'd like to see them more, but they are at a little bit higher level based on the SEC2 progression. We've been able to do some things with that, but they're still way below what they would get market value.
Well, they shouldn't be too far below because that's what SEC squared is designed. It takes private sector too, and it factors in the amount of money you would make at a particular position. It does private sector and public sector. So it may not be a premium. I mean, I don't think a lot of people get into state government to make a premium, but it's certainly going to be at a level where you're at a minimum.
That is a part of our progression plan, is to bring those nursing positions up to market. So that's what the 10% request is for.
Okay.
To start at market.
Well, if you're at 10%, just so I'm clear on this, if you're at 10% progression, though, you're going to be, you ought to be probably above market at that rate. But I mean, I don't know that 10% is in the offing. We'll have to see as we get down the road, but that'll put you way up there. But anyway, thank you for your time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You'll see that on those salary sheets, including the clerk.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted on that. I think that'll work. Good. You have anything else, Gordon? Senators? Okay, so that concludes your part, and we appreciate you being here, and we'll take all of this under advisement and see what we can do.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, next, I think we have The physical therapy board is next. Give you time to get in here and get settled. Thank you, thank you.
So here's our handout. I guess I need to walk over there.
Was that the only one we had with you?
Yes.
Okay, so you're like, yeah, go take a nap. Doing good, doing good. Tina, this is your one with me too, and so it's okay.
Did you get our handout? You got it from last.
Okay, so just like we did a moment ago, I think you have a much smaller board than the nursing board. But if you would, as we started the last meeting, just introduce yourself and, tell us who you are and tell us what your board does and what you are asking for.
Okay, hello, good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Boyette. I'm the Executive Director of the Physical Therapy Board. And with me today is Denise DeRossett, who will help discuss the budget. A little bit about the agency. The board is a licensing and regulatory agency for physical therapists, physical therapist assistants. They do not license physical therapy aides, techs, or physical therapy facilities, but we do conduct random audits which take us into the facilities. There are currently 3,959 active physical therapists, practitioners in the state. We are a small agency with 3 staff members. Myself, I have been licensing physical therapists for 25 years and served as the executive director for 20 of those years. A full-time licensing investigator going on her 13th year, a full-time customer service representative. That position is vacant, but I am planning on filling that position. And the board consists of 7 members, 4 physical therapists, 1 physical therapist assistant, 1 physician, and 1 consumer at large. And I'm gonna turn it over to Denise to discuss the budget and more in depth.
We want to talk a little bit about salaries. Last year, the legislative body said that this agency could have salary progressions of just over $3,000, but it didn't take into account how much they really needed for their current positions, including per diems and fringe benefits like cafeteria plan. And so when you took the amount of their current salaries and looked at it, they only really had $400 for progressions. And so they couldn't give any of the salaries last year, even though it was stated that they could. And so what they're asking for is for that amount to actually be figured on their current salaries and then be able to give the progressions in 25. And so they're asking for a 7% for the 2 staff members that are currently there. Both of the staff members have been in that agency for a very long time. The administrative assistant licensing officer has been there 12 years, and Stephanie's been licensing PTs for 25 years, and she was the only executive director of this agency. So lots and lots of experience. So we would like to be able to award her a full 7% salary increase. And that's what we originally asked for, and the base budget did not include that. And then the second thing that has changed since our original budget was submitted is that we're asking for an extra $10,000 in contractual. They have a licensing database that has been developed by a single individual. His company has maintained that for him this whole time. He is 75 years old and retiring in June. And so he's made arrangements for another company to take over the maintenance of that database, but we're not exactly sure what's going to happen with that. So we're just asking for the authority for $10,000 extra for data portability and in case there's some implementation issues with the transfer. And so that's just to give us the money in case we need it. And that's the only thing that's different from what the original budget request was.
So the individual you're referring to, because we've done some other budgets, I think he must have had more than one agency that he was working. You know,
think
he's
he
been
did.
working several that, you know, kind of cross over here. You know, so, because I know we've seen that request on. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so he's,
I think he has about 10 agencies that he supported.
yeah, and I think every one of them's been asking us for about 10,000 to make up for that, so.
5 to 10, you've got one agency
Yeah.
that's asking for
Maybe we just,
100,000.
yeah, we may need to just give him a raise and keep him around for a little bit longer.
We would
It may
love
be,
that.
it may be more cost effective to make that happen.
Mhm.
You made reference to the third pin not being filled. It hadn't been filled for quite a while. How much do you see the salary of that pin being?
The salary of it is 34,446, and with fringe, it makes it 46,054. With the fringe benefits on that position, it's 46,054. And that's one thing that SEC2, when we did the budgets, they always said the money was at start salary, but SEC2 actually allows you to hire at market. But in a small board, you don't have any choice.
Right.
So
So yours is easier to just kind of clarify here. I'll just, you know, one question about just the profession. You said you have 3,959 PTs in the state. What is what's their licensure fee each year?
The renewal or when they apply?
Is it different?
Yeah,
Okay.
when they renew each year, a PT is 150, a physical therapist assistant is 125. And then if you're coming in through reciprocity, you know, a license in another state, it would be 325 total. That's with a license fee of 150, application fee of 125, and then they pay for the background check fee. And then a new graduate would pay the same fees except for they're added the exam registration fee of $50. So a PT coming in the state from another state would license in another state would pay $325, and PTA would pay $300 applying for initial license. And then we have the compact license, which is $150 for initial and $150 to renew.
And Tina, they're carrying like 1.485 in their balance as far, okay. Just one other last question. This is not about your budget, but I know there's been some talk this year about some degree of direct access for PTs without some of the referrals that have kind of come through. Is that something that you see or talk about at all on the board level?
Oh yeah, they're in full support. They've been trying to get direct access for a while. It's Mississippi and Alabama, the last two states. A lot of the states have had it 20 years. You know, some had partial. We have partial, but they are asking for full patient access.
Okay.
They're fully qualified and taught in school and eligible to do, make that decision.
Right. Well, I appreciate your 20+ years of service. I know the board does too, and I know they're hoping you stay around, because nobody wants to fill positions like that if they can avoid it. But are there any questions from the committee members? Senator Butler?
Sure. The compact privilege license is between states who are members of the compact that have the same licensure requirements from state to state. So what they do is kind of like actual universal application to where they go and do an online application with the compact commission and pay the board's fees. Each state sets their fees, and then they pay the compact commission fee, and then they get a license because we all have the same licensure requirements.
Okay, now, how does that affect physical therapists in the state of Mississippi?
Honestly, I mean, it helps. There's a demand for physical therapy across the nation and in Mississippi because we have such a rural area, and they come in and take up the slack for that area. And a lot of them end up staying. And once they stay, then you have to in turn get a regular license.
How long do we have to be here before they can get a regular license?
There's no time frame. It's if they establish residency in Mississippi. Okay, so if they come here and they're working under the compact and then they decide to make Mississippi their home residency, then to be in the compact, you have to have a home state.
Okay.
So then they would make Mississippi their home state, which requires a regular license. And Mississippi was one of the first 10 states to get the compact. And so the board has a member that's on the commission, the compact commission. So we're proud of that.
Very much. Thank you.
Senator McClendon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the compact licenses, do most of those live on the state borders like Chairman Parker and I are in DeSoto County? So are there a greater number in Shelby County residents have a compact that come to DeSoto and work, or Tunica or Marshall?
Yes, the surrounding state like Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee have the compact. So it's more or less yes, some people go to Tennessee to practice in Mississippi, and then people come to Mississippi. Like I don't issue the compact, the commission does, but someone applied for the compact privilege from Tennessee today, and it's instant. Okay, so they do it's mainly the border states, but we have them from Missouri, all over. A lot of them are telehealth.
That was going to be my next question. Do we have numbers on that? Of
On
how
the
many?
compact, currently, we have 174 active compact privilege licenses. Yeah, 174. And we'll lose some, of course, and then we'll gain some more.
But a good many of those live in DeSoto, for instance, and go to work in Memphis or.
Well, if you have, okay, let's say.
Or Tennessee.
Okay,
I'm
say
gonna say.
someone has a regular license in Tennessee and gets the compact in Mississippi, then they'll cross over to Mississippi and practice in Mississippi as long as they have the compact. For like Alabama right now does not have the compact privilege. They're trying to get the compact. So then in that state, you cannot cross over without the compact. They have to get a regular license. I hope I'm not confusing you.
So do we have a number of residents in Mississippi that have the compact, or how many in Tennessee are crossing over? I guess is what I'm getting at.
I don't have those numbers right now.
Okay.
I can get them for you, but I've never kept up with the.
And we're just asking for similar to what Senator Butler was asking. Are we hurting our in-state PTs by having the compact?
Personally, I don't think so. Like I said, the rural area, there's a demand and people don't want to work and try, because they can have a patient and drive an hour away and see another patient. And so they come in and take up that slack, but a lot of them are telehealth.
Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
So you have one investigator. How many active investigations do you have right now?
So far in fiscal year 24, we've received 16 complaints. And in fiscal year 23, there were 24. And we have not had any complaints on the compact. People coming in.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for your time and information. And Senator Butler, I'm sorry.
And I would just like to say this, Mr. Chairman, and that is that I think the compact license is good, but I think another thing that we should focus on, and that is how do we get individuals more interested in covering some of the outer areas. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
Some of them come in and they come into Jackson, they come into those places like that. But how do we get those extended out into those areas that are not being serviced? You know what I mean?
Right. Well, the association, the board, we're all trying to work on that when we go into the schools and speak to the schools, trying to encourage them to stay here. Honestly, a lot of the younger generation, they'll get a license here and then they will leave. Yeah. But guess who comes back? so that they reapply and come back to Mississippi, because this is
That's a
where
good
their
thing,
home
yeah.
is. Yeah. So, and also the rural areas, at one time, they paid more. I mean, I had a call from Alabama and they were like, I have heard that they're paying a physical therapist assistant $100,000 to work in the Delta. And I said, it's true. So, I mean, I don't know how to get them. I think some of the Mississippi resident, physical therapists, practitioners are working in the rural areas, but the compact helps the travelers come in, the traveling therapists come in and take over and help with the need of physical therapists.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your time. It's been very informative. If we have any more questions, we'll reach out to you, but I think yours is going to be one that we understand and can make decisions on from the information you gave us. So
Well, I
thank you.
appreciate y'all. Thank
for
y'all.
you. Okay, so now Tina, you can leave us. We roll them in just one at a time. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
So you're just hanging out, Emily?
Just right here until Briggs comes back.
Okay.
Tracy and Tina are sitting down there, but you can sit up here. That's fine.
Okay.
If he comes in, we'll switch around a little bit.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
You know, they've got this deficit request here, 320,000.
Like the band director, yeah.
He was figuring it out after you back that out, how much is it building up to the request? And I just talked to Denny out there. I'm gonna give you this, but I need to scratch through this number 2 here, because I don't think that's gonna be right. So
Evil.
anything that's gonna
After all these two.
be- if we grant this,
You're gonna take it off?
No.
I just don't have a
That's the
Error in my,
it's-
How many times have I looked at this? And I didn't catch it.
last year I misspelled my name.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. Not in this one, but in the other.
I'm gonna fix this as soon as I talk to her.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Uh-huh. Mhm. Yeah, I put their names inside.
Yeah.
Okay, we got Charlie joining us now. He's going to be here and then he's going to leave and then he's going to come back, I guess, or he can just hang out, through the insurance part. Yeah. So I think I've got as many analysts as we can have kind of roll in one afternoon. If this may be a record. So
Stuck with me for 3 of them. Sorry.
so it's good to be stuck. So just like we did before, if you would introduce yourself to the committee here, and then we'll hear a little bit about what you do and a little bit about what you need or what you're requesting. So
My name is Yvonne Laird, and I'm the president of J-Bar and Associates. Last year, the board performed an internal review, and basically what they did is they decided to go to a contractual agreement due to the size of the board and the revenue that they receive. So J-Bar and Associates is a management company. We also run the Mississippi State Board of Massage Therapy and the Mississippi Auctioneer Commission. So, but the chiropractor board I've only had for 6 months. So I hope you don't ask me too many difficult questions. But the board was created in 1973. So we're celebrating our 50th year. We have 839 total licensees, which consist of the chiropractors, the chiropractor assistants, the radiological technologists, the claims reviewer, externs, and preceptors. We have a 6-member board. 5 of those are appointed by the governor. 1 is a permanent member appointed by the Department of Health. The Department of Health representative is a physician, and of course, the remaining are all chiropractors. J. Bar and Associates, we provide all staffing, we provide all accommodations, we provide all rent, utilities, all of that. Basically, the board has one expense plus the expense of the fiscal agent and the Attorney General's representative, which is at no charge to the agency. So we've had a 1.5% increase since FY 2022. And that was simply to cover the cost of some MMRS fees that at one time were not charged to the board. And so I'm going to turn it over to Denise and she can address the, oh, by the way, we have $313,000 in the bank.
I think we got the wrong sheets.
Should have
Oh,
Should have this, the dental, he was giving you an updated sheet. That one's gonna come a little later, but you should also have this one.
I apologize. I gave you the wrong sheet.
Oh.
I thought
Yeah,
we
so-
were on dental. I
yeah.
apologize.
I'm a
I'm-
little
I'm on
smaller than
chiropractor.
they are.
Yeah. I thought you just updated me earlier.
Sir, I was
It's- Yeah,
mistaken.
yeah.
Denny
So-
out in the hall, so you
yeah.
decided that's where you were.
So I'm on the right page with you. Y'all let's try and get out of the meeting early. You know, jump to the end and just have it all knocked out.
Do those numbers, yeah, I was gonna say, do those numbers look more in line with what I'm talking about?
So what I had here was an increase in the contractual service request of $3,139. Is that the,
The contractual is basically to cover the expense of the, fingerprint equipment. We're going to a fingerprint-based background check, federal and state background check, effective January 1st, 2025.
If you're looking at what Charlie gave you, I don't know if he's updated his numbers, but the original request that we put in August is different than what we're coming for today, because there's been some changes. So the biggest change that this board is asking for is in addition to its travel budget. Inside of their budget, in the program objectives, it says that they would like to have every board member go to a National Association training at least every other year. Make sure their executive secretary gets some national training, as well as their attorney general. They have not had any training for a board member since 2021, and that board member is no longer on the board. And so what they're asking for is to go ahead and allow each and every board member to go to the National Association and receive training. And they want to do it together so that the board can have the continuity and learn what each other learns. And then thereafter, it will then go every other year. And so this is a one-time expense and we're asking for $16,861 additional in the travel. And that will also help cover the cost of the mileage increase that went to 67 cents in January.
so where's the meeting this year?
It's in Phoenix.
Okay.
That is correct.
And there's enough budget money in the budget. If we get the authority to spend it, there's enough cash to handle that. They've also told you that their revenue has increased since Yvonne has been the director. And so we've seen that increase. I think we pointed out here that their budget has not increased at all, except 1.5% in 4 years, but their expenditures have increased like 23%. And that's because of some of the changes. The expenditures will go back down, but they really need this money, one-time money to go to this travel. And then they're also asking, it'll be the first time that they'll have fingerprinting for background checks for this agency. And so there'll be some one-time cost to buy the software, to buy the scanning equipment, and then to have it.
Pay the DPS charges. That's correct.
Mhm.
We also have the computer system that 10 other people have.
And we didn't ask for.
We didn't ask for anything.
Yeah,
To cover that.
So how many travel right now? I mean, you said some travel and some don't. What is,
The only way that they can, right now, that they have the accessibility to travel is if they are given a scholarship. And there's one from each district, and a district consists of about 4 states.
Okay.
So we had one scholarship this year.
We had one scholarship this year. The Attorney General will be going to one in May.
Okay.
But it's a full paid scholarship.
And just for your information, the Attorney General likes to go to the Federal Association of Regulatory Boards. And so there's about 3 different boards that take turns paying that fee. And so one year it's massages year, and the next year it's chiropractors year.
Right.
And so you'll see that in every 3rd year, we might ask for additional money.
Okay.
For the travel.
So we need more questions from senators?
Well, I really can't answer that as a board member. It just simply will not be utilized. Because there's a lot of things that come into play. And that's, most of the chiropractors own their own businesses, and it's really difficult for them to be away for a full week.
I think he's talking about what training though.
Oh, they still have to pick up continuing education each year for their renewal, and that's at their cost. They have to cover those costs.
And let me just say too, since Yvonne has been on the board, that board had never received any board training. And so a couple of months ago, she actually had a training conducted on how to be a board member, and had like the ethical requirements and how to read financial reports and things like that. And so that she's teaching them that about how to be a board member, but going to these national conferences tells them the things that are coming in their profession and how those professions need to be regulated. And so they'll miss out on a lot of that good information if they don't get to attend.
Well, one of the things primarily is, during COVID, so many of the continuing education classes went to online. And chiropractors in the state of Mississippi had never experienced that before. They're mandatory, in the seat,
And so,
hands-on. And not that that's not a good thing. It is a good thing, but if COVID taught us nothing else, is that you can learn online. And so that is something that we're trying to gather information from other states. And I think the benefit of them being able to collaborate with other states who have already fought those battles and figured out the best way to handle online, educational opportunities is going to only benefit our licensees here in the state.
yeah, I know sometime last year I had, there was a board meeting that was held and, or that was skipped, and because you have a procedure on some of the resident interns having the provisions that require them to come before the board before their seat is actually placed and allowed. There were a couple that I had to actually request, and you may have been there, that a special meeting be held to get those confirmations in place.
Oh, for the
So,
preceptors and
for the
interns.
preceptors,
Yes, yes.
so you think
And
you
we
have
did
that?
Yes.
And I think that's sometimes important too for the board members, is to understand that, to a point we were talking about earlier, if we don't have these students allowed to complete these rotations in the state, then their desire to stay in the state goes down. So I just, I think some degree of training, on that point in particular would be something.
Yes, because we
good for
have
the
the
board.
interns, of course, they're still in school, and then
Right.
we have the externs that are here working under the preceptors and until they can become licensed in the state. And so we often have special call board meetings in order to take care of that. They understand now the importance of having those special call meetings. Just because the statute said 4 times a year doesn't necessarily mean only 4 times a year. So I think since I've been there in June, we've had 3 special call board meetings.
Which also increased travel.
I know,
Rather
I know.
than making
You're the
salary.
Are all of your seats filled right now?
Yes.
Are any up for confirmation this year?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions from senators? Thank you for your work and with the board, to allow that that salary number to be the lowest number it can be. I don't think we can, Corbin, you think we can make the salary number any lower than 0? Yeah, we can't make it any lower than that. So we like that first number. So we appreciate you and thank you. So Charlie, you're back at 3:15. Yeah, we're gonna do the nurses at 3:15, right, Charlie? Nurses at 3:15? No. Dentist at 3:15. I'm just checking. Yeah, I see you. Okay, the next, hello. Next, we got Emily moving into the seat here. Corbin's gonna look out there and see if we got anybody from Cheney's organization. If he's not here, then, yeah, they just don't need anything, do they? Well, they don't need anything over there, do they? Yeah. Give him 5 minutes, then we'll level fund it. Yeah, we'll just level fund it. Just say Department of Insurance. Rural fire truck. They're not here yet.
I understand it will be David Browning.
Okay.
And I expect their budget person and this person is also Brent.
Insurance, rural fire truck, and fire tower. And then we got dental at the end.
I like that.
Thanks. Do you want to do, I think dental's here.
Are they here?
Real quick.
Well, if Charlie's still out there.
That's what I understand.
Two?
Yeah, it's supposed to be 2. So we're just messing with you today. Dental's gonna wait. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Corbin's just messing with you. I think insurance showed up, so they're gonna go first. This may be a little while unless you just want to hang around. Have they updated or they have the same? They hadn't changed. I'm sure they've changed. I got your notes that you sent me. So what we've got.
Yeah, we've already been on a Zoom call with them and phone call and.
So Senator Michelle, you want to withdraw your motion to level fund them from last year? Okay, we'll consider that motion withdrawn, but open for debate later if necessary. Yeah, go below zero. But since you weren't in here for the last few meetings we've had, and some of you are new, if you would, I'm gonna have you introduce yourselves and tell us what you do at Department of Insurance. We're gonna go through, I assume you're gonna handle all three of the budgets we're gonna talk about here, or are there gonna be some people who change as we go for fire truck and fire academy?
We're prepared to talk about the insurance department. We got state fire academies coming in right after us.
Okay.
We can go ahead and get them in here if y'all want.
We'll break it into groups. So we'll just start with Department of Insurance. So if you would introduce yourselves and then just give us a little highlight of what's going on at the agency and what your requested needs are.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm David Browning. I serve as a Deputy Insurance Commissioner for Commissioner Cheney. Been at the department about 25 or so years, and I'll kick it over. This is Kim, if you want.
I'm Kim Causey. I am with the legal division at the department.
And I'm Angie Mullins. I've been here about 60 days with the department. So I am a budget over the budgets and learning every day, big time.
Okay.
We appreciate, the opportunity to kind of briefly go over, what our requests are for the upcoming fiscal year. And if it's okay, I'll just kind of go by, you've got the handout, the line items in which we're requesting, additional funding from the level funding, if that just to save in the effort to save time and not go through something that we're not requesting additional funding. And really the first line item, personnel services, we are, requesting an additional $280,000 to additional individuals for the department. And the reason for the two additional individuals is, I'm sure y'all are aware of this prior authorization legislation that's coming through the pipeline. If it comes to fruition, it's going to move it from the Department of Health to the insurance department. And, I think there's certain services we're going to have to perform, such as licensing these private review agents. And also, our, guys that handle complaints, their load is going to increase. Although we are handling, complaints regarding prior authorization, we're not doing it to the extent that this potential legislation requires. So it's going to require some expertise and potentially some additional manpower for us to be able to handle this legislation if it does pass. And so that's, in addition, we're also, just requesting, through your standard benchmarks, salary progressions and things of that nature for individuals who, pass certain tests and things like that, just some additional funding to be able to fund those benchmarks and salary progressions for individuals. Travel, we're essentially requesting some additional funding for that. Our state fire marshal's office, have vehicles and gas has increased, mileage reimbursement has increased, and just due to inflation, certain other maintenance of vehicles to get them repaired, and things of that nature. So that may not come out of this, but anyway, those things have increased. So we're requesting, additional 10,000. Contractual, we're requesting additional 61,000. We have a regulation, at the department called network adequacy, and we're in the midst of trying to get that adopted to ensure insurance companies have an adequate network. This does, if we were able to get this regulation adopted here in the next few months, it will require some outside resources that we probably don't have to be able to review a company's compliance with, to make sure their network is adequate out there. And so that there's some additional contractual money that, sometimes we have to go out and contract with a third party who has specific expertise to look at these issues. So there's some additional, funding requests there. This LoSAP, and I was going to ask Emily, about this. We were appropriated $3 million last year for that, and And not sure how to handle that because it's my understanding that's, doesn't need to be, maybe doesn't need to be reappropriated, or is it gonna need to be
So
reappropriated? Because we
how
didn't,
much have you used so far of the length
we
of
haven't
service?
used any of it.
So it's just so, and the intent on it is to just as certain benchmarks are met as far as the length of service provisions, you're gonna award, what's the dollar amount that you have in mind for different benchmarks?
Right. I mean, I don't know. Do you know?
Well, LoSAP's going to be governed by a board of trustees that is selected. Commissioner of Insurance gets a person, the lieutenant governor, the governor. The lieutenant governor just appointed their person last week. The governor still hasn't. So this trustees, they haven't even met yet. And they're the ones who will be doing the governing, the regulations, making the decisions. So that's the reason why it hasn't gotten off the ground yet, but hopefully it will soon.
So we are working on a bill to take I guess the general funds that are appropriated for that and put it in a special fund for that LoSAP program. So we are working on that.
Okay.
So
The 25 request contained another ask for another 3 million. And so in speaking with Nancy in December, when we met with Leanne, we had an understanding that perhaps it was just the original 3 million requiring reappropriation. I'm just confirming it's not really that you need 6 million to see that.
No, it's just figuring out how to get, because we know what Kim mentioned. We weren't able to, how to get it from last year to the upcoming, or this current year to upcoming fiscal year. So we have it in the, and I think we had to establish a trust fund or some type of account for that. And so it's just figuring out how to get it from one year to the next, so we can, when the governor and other appointments made, we can, proceed on with spending some.
So that's already been set aside then, and so we just need to have the vehicle to. Okay. Yeah, so that answer, so Emily and I had a pretty good conversation about that, trying to figure that out with the numbers we saw between the 4.5 and the 3.5 numbers right there. So did you have anything else you wanted to share since we went off on that tangent, or would you like us to start asking our questions?
I guess just one final thing is just talk about the vehicles. We've requested 361,000 in additional, and the reason for that request is we got 21 vehicles with over 120 miles. We got 10 vehicles with over 200,000 miles, and 6 vehicles that are over 10 years old. And our fire investigators use these vehicles, or LC Gas use these to inspect facilities and things of that nature. So we're seeking to purchase a total of 15 vehicles in FY25 just due to age and high mileage. And so that kind of concludes our just kind of line item request there. And just one final thing in closing, the annual fire fund, which we were appropriated $9 million, I believe, last year. The breakout, and I'll tell you what was collected, from House Bill 451 for last year, and then kind of tell you where we are this year. But last year, 500,000 went to the Mississippi First Responders Health and Safety Trust Fund. Around 6.7 went to the annual fire fund for FY 23. And then I guess around almost 18.9 million went to the Mississippi Windstorm Underwriting Association as far as that non-admitted policy fee collection and the breakout. So the annual fire fund, got almost $7 million. So and last year, I think we were appropriated, may have had some carryover or something, appropriated 9 million, for that. So in this year, that fund, that non-admitted policy fee fund is tracking about 9% above what I just talked, those collection. We collected from that non-admitted policy fee in FY 23 is 26,026,000. And like I said, that's probably tracking about 9% higher so far in this fiscal year. So not a material difference, but it looks like there may be some additional funds for that for this fiscal year. And so,
Do y'all have an estimate of how much that will be? All
So if it's 9%,
It's
you're
nine.
expecting
we can get you that.
$500,000 or something like that.
Yeah, we could.
9% over the 26 from what you had before.
Right. We can get you what it is as of today, but I think the estimate, like I said, is pretty much, I mean, like I said, it's around 9-10%. So it's going to be just 10% above this 26,026,000. That's probably how we would estimate it.
So kind of in summary here, you're looking to add 2 new positions, which total 84,806. The additional amount that you're asking for salary progressions. I know Emily got the sheet on this. Can you give us an idea, because we've been spending a lot of time, at least today, talking about percentage increases and things like that as we've been looking at budgets. How do the percentage increases look for your staff? Are you requesting 3%, 5%, 10%? You know, where do you fall in that range of your salary request progressions?
Pull that back up. I think we, figured about 2.5% to 3% for, you talking about for progressions? Yeah, for salary progressions.
You've got that where we can kind of compare apples to apples on that. And in the 10,000 for travel, 61,000 for basically the contractual. You mentioned the PBM regulation. So yeah, and again, I don't know the chairman's bill that he's going to be bringing up, potentially rumored on PBM transparency. But I guess understanding there would be that there is going to be some need at the agency to help regulate that, which I understand, and I may bring something else to your plate on that matter in the not too distant future. But what do you see the regulatory role in the Department of Insurance? How do you see that's going to play out in the PBM model?
Well,
You'll be looking at the, are you looking at, because you mentioned networks and things like that. So one concern I have is that when you look at a network, there's sometimes people are considered to be a network who really aren't in the state. They may be counting things that aren't really truly here. And I think we should really be counting our own apples first before we're counting apples that are outside of the state. What do you see at this stage of the game, any of you, as far as your role in regulation there?
As far as PBMs, I'm not aware of anything, as far as the department. I know there's talk of it. We haven't seen anything specific on PBM regulation. We have regulated PBMs in the past, although it was sort of limited regulation. But if we were to get pharmacy benefit managers, that would add, some increased cost to our department, because we would have to have additional, compliance type people to review the financial statements of these entities, to license them, and to, deal with network issues, complaints.
So who are the 2 additional employees you were talking about earlier when you were talking about additional?
That's in regard to
prior
prior authorization, not PBM.
Okay.
And so prior authorization, currently the Department of Health has that, and they have, I think, one point, they said full-time employees 1.5. I don't know how you have a half, but I guess, 1.5 to 2 full-time employees. And then, I think it was about 52,000 in fees that were generated. But we've got to we may potentially need some staff. And if this does pass, we have to look for expertise and this prior authorization, of people that understand that world or may understand that world. And and, you know, and we may have to contract some of this out because we may not can get the expertise to look at, you know, this prior authorization, because it requires, if you read the legislation, it does require somebody with some technical knowledge, you know, in that world of coding and understanding that process. And not, you know, we don't have that right now. So PBMs, if that ever came to fruition, you know, obviously that would require some, you know, maybe some additional staff to help with that load, because those things can get out of control. And, you know, that it's a good bit of compliance work that has to be done with that. You know, going back to the network adequacy piece, the network adequacy has time and distance standards for each type of specialty. And, you know, some of this and determining compliance, an insurance companies, whether or not they have an adequate network, requires some sophisticated software that you plug all these numbers in and it spits out, you know, time and distance and whether or not an insurance company is complying with that. And so we don't have that at the department. Some of this software is kind of expensive. It's probably cheaper for us to contract it out with the individuals that do. And so, you know, those are just some regulatory things that are coming down the pipeline. Artificial intelligence is another thing that's coming down, you know, the pipeline that, you know, they're going to put, you know, with, you know, especially as it relates to insurance companies, they're going to put some, you know, requirements on the department to, you know, to look at. And then, you know, we're doing a national data call with the National Insurance Association of Insurance Commissioners, collecting premium and loss information and other categories on insurance companies that are licensed here in the state to look at the, you know, portability, you know, availability and portability of you know, property insurance in the state. And this is a nationwide thing. And so, you know, we just got various, you know, type, you know, regulatory, you know, initiatives coming down the pipeline that requires specific expertise to look at that we may or may not have, and just want to be prepared for that.
So any other questions on the insurance budget?
You hadn't seen the bill yet.
I would think it would probably be more, because I think that would be more complex than what the prior authorization is.
So I'll kind of chime in too. I don't, it depends. I haven't seen any bill on it yet, but I do have some things I'd maybe like to talk to the chairman about on that. Yeah, but it depends on really what we're asking you to kind of chime in on. You know, and I think conceptually the bigger issue that I see is that, you know, we have, you know, kind of a move of the market at the highest level to kind of take over. And as a result, it affects kind of downstream in whatever you're looking at, you know, PBMs, for example, the individual, you know, pharmacies or practices. Yeah. And I think we could have probably some basic transparency rules, or, you know, just, you know, level playing field types of rules that I don't think would take nearly as much as what you're describing. You know, as I don't think, you know, the desire is to turn over, you know, drug pricing or anything like that to insurance. I think it's just to ensure, you know, some degree of level playing field, you know, on things as we look at that question. But I do think, you know, and since we're having this discussion, I do think the Department of Insurance is a great place to, you know, kind of get some of those needs met, you know, for the state. You know, so I look forward to talking to you, Chairman, about that, you know, which is totally off subject here, but
yeah,
yes.
You know, to that point, you know, some of the legislation that we've seen in other states regarding, that's really what I was speaking to, my knowledge of it, is the licensing of them. You know, we got to review their financials, we got to review other documents, we got to examine them, audit them, go out and then handle complaints. And it can be quite a load, you know, if that legislation, but what you're talking about is different than what we've seen in other states as far as just turning over that pharmacy benefit management, you know, over to the department. But if it's something similar to what you're talking about, where it's not that, then don't think it would be but if you're talking about just a full-fledged, turning, moving it from the pharmacy board to the Department of Insurance, the total regulation of these, that would require, some additional manpower and resources that we just don't have.
How many of those are actually Mississippi?
I don't know. I haven't seen, because the pharmacy board really, I could get that from them. I don't know. We just don't have anything to do with them anymore. Like I said, we used to review their financial statements and all that stuff, but that got shifted to the board of pharmacy, and I'd hate to tell, I don't have that number offhand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I hate to beat this horse. Our state health insurance plan, the PBM sets the deductible on the prescriptions. And they also are allowed to say what the clawback is. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
So if it's an insurance plan, wouldn't it make more sense if you guys were overseeing that?
Just say yes and we'll move on to the next question.
You will have to ask Commissioner Cheney that question.
Okay, I think Corbin has a legitimate question.
Last year y'all received capital expense funds for vehicles, and then I know y'all had a reappropriation for the smoke alarms. Do y'all have an estimate of how much of that you're going to use this fiscal year? And are you requesting a reappropriation? Y'all may have already gotten with Emily. I just didn't know. Okay, so for the smoke alarms or for the vehicles? Okay, so we reappropriated the money last year for smoke alarms. So, and then I guess we might just need to get with me and Emily on how much funds you're using out of the capital expense funds and if you need a reappropriation.
We could get back to you. with that
Yeah,
information.
yeah, for sure.
You want to have the smoke alarms on the vehicles?
Yes, ma'am.
But it's your thought that you need another 361,000 for vehicles on top of that, or you're not sure if there's some outstanding that could be available for vehicles. I think that's part of your question in it, Corbin.
Let us look at that.
Okay.
We can get back with Corman or
Okay.
and get you an answer. We'll relook at that. I'm not real sure on that one.
Okay.
But we'll look at it, and if we need to readjust the number, we can do that.
Very good. Any other questions on just the Department of Insurance budget first here? Okay, and so next, at the State Fire Academy. So if any of you are staying, you can stay. If not, if you wouldn't mind grabbing your colleagues out there and tell them they're, sure, absolutely.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. On the LoSAP, I believe it was understood that there would be 3 million each year appropriated.
Our understanding that there was going to be an initial 3 million that was funded, and then the rest of it would come from, another source, and that.
That the plan would grow and that perhaps people could put some money into it. I think without having the board selected yet, it really is at a disadvantage because they're the ones who are going to be running it and would be able to tell you exactly what they needed.
Because there's really not requirements yet for to be able to participate.
So we got the initial, the 3 million, if we can carry, or however we need to do that, then once the board is established, I think we'll have to, potentially come back later and figure out, once the program gets up and running, and figure out what that would need to be. But to answer that right now, think, you know, just that initial funding can get it up and going, and then we'll just have to go from there once, you know, once it gets established.
And this is for the protection of volunteer firemen, correct?
So length of service award, you know, type program where that was, you know, adopted in other states to reward, you know, those volunteer fire services.
So it's pretty safe to say that we have people that have been volunteer firemen for years and are getting close to maybe cashing in their chips. But yet we still don't have all the appointees on board. Thank you.
That's not I mean, we don't have that.
So we almost forgot one thing here. I'm glad Senator McClendon asked a question because I guess the rural fire truck special fund is under your purview also. And so I've got a few questions about that special fund. So the request that I saw that Emily and I went over was for 3.6 million for the program for this year. And last year, it looked like there was 11 million for the program, at least in what we were reviewing. So the question would be, was all of that 11 million used last year for the rural fire truck fund?
No, that's something we're going to have to correct on what we got. Yes, there was 9 million from that annual fire fund, and then an additional 2 million that was for the rural assistance matching funds. We worked the 9 million, I believe we spent this year, and I think it's in the financial statement back there, but I think we spent to date a little over 3 million out of that $9 million the annual fire fund, which can go toward RIF-TAF and these other supplemental funds. I think we have probably 5 million that may be pending, whereas they may have purchased the truck and it hasn't come in yet, and they don't get paid until the truck actually physically comes in. So I believe we're going to spend, you know, the 2 million we weren't able, and Kim, you may can explain this better than I can of why we're not on the 2 out of the 11 million.
The 2 million for the matching fund, there is an eligibility requirement that limits your participation in the matching fund to having participated in less than 8 rounds. That pretty much knocks out every county in the state. We have submitted legislation to remove that eligibility requirement. And if that does pass, I think we'll see more counties and municipalities requesting fire trucks under that program.
Okay, so help me a little bit on, you know, because you've got pending dollars here and you've got a new request. Yeah. And I guess I'm trying to figure out, you know, how do you come up with the 3.6 million request if we're not sure exactly how much of that original 9 + 2 has been utilized or fully committed? You know, is there like a target number of trucks that you have that are for this year? And, you know, is there a dollar amount per truck that we can factor into our decision making, or is that just a number that just has been, you know, conceptually?
Brad Smith, who's our statewide fire services coordinator, runs that program. He wasn't able to be here. I tried to get him to come. We can get him to get in contact, and he can talk about what specific details of what's been spent to this date and what's pending out there for the rest of this fiscal year. But we have spent out of that 9 million, that the 11 million total, you know, we have spent 3 million of the 9 million so far. And I think we have, you know, close to 5 million in pending requests out there. So I think we're going to get close to spending, you know, that 9 million that was appropriated for these, you know, out of that fire truck fund. But Brad has the specific details,
Right.
and they'd
So he
probably
could tell us if that's pending for 2025. And with the 3.6 million, do we have to have that? Do you have to have that cash on hand to make the request or the order for the truck ahead of time?
I think so. No.
Yeah, I mean, what we do is whenever we get a request, we have started putting the money in escrow, so it's accounted for that particular county. And then we can't release it until the fire truck, of course, is delivered. So when it's ordered, we can put the money in escrow. And then when it's delivered, we spent, pay out the money. So that might be where,
Yeah,
there's a
that's-
discrepancy. That's just.
I think what would help is if you just got us a detailed accounting of, where the 9 million went, and that's already been used, the remaining 9 million that's committed, and then, anything you had about how to get out the 2 million matching funds, that I think that would be helpful. If that bill hadn't been dropped, that'd be a good bill to be considering.
I think Brad did
Unless we can do
send
that
some
through the program.
information on all that, what we've spent detailed for each county municipal to someone. I know.
Yes, Kim, you sent it to me, and I do have that information. The question as to how the FY 25 amount of 3.6 million is requested, I'll follow up with.
We may need to get back with you on that. That may be.
It seems almost like a 2026 request.
Yeah, I think
because
that may
they're
be
not
an
gonna be
error.
put
We
into
need to
place
correct
until
that.
then.
I don't think that's, I mean, I think we're gonna have to fix that on that, but I want to get with Brad and
Okay.
we can get you the correct information. I apologize. I think that probably should have been our request is for the annual fire fund and the RIF TAP and all that comes out of that. So I don't want to, we may need to just take that off altogether, because all that, like I said, you have that
It's
annual
like the
fire fund.
LoSAP where you've got a special fund that's running something, and we just need to, kind of keep our thoughts of the special fund in that basket. And,
Yeah.
maybe we'll do the same thing with
I
LoSAP.
think this is confusing that 3.6 million because that's kind of a subsection of that annual fire, that 9 million or whatever. So that probably doesn't need to be in there at all. No focus on but we'll get you the correct information. Apologize for.
It's an incredibly complicated program.
Angie, you just figured all that out. I have that back, since you're new, they just do all that and bring that back to us, and everything will be fine. So-
On the supplemental program, I think the 8 rounds was, I guess, included in there because there's a number of counties that had matched and hit their round amounts. And then there were some that didn't hit their round amounts yet. So I guess that was why, I guess the 8 rounds was included in the bill. So the smaller counties that could have additional funds to purchase the fire truck. So I guess if you delete out that 8 round minimum requirement, then that money will get taken by some of the bigger counties. So that's just a thought. That makes sense.
Prioritize the ones that can match.
Yeah, so
That's what
the
you're saying.
smaller counties
Right.
haven't utilized the program, and so they're under the 8 round amounts.
Right.
So they're the ones that would benefit.
Right.
If you move the cap completely, then it would just go to the bigger counties. So
Right.
just a thought.
We also allowed 2 or 3 years ago in legislation that if you were a smaller county that hasn't gone through so many rounds, you can like jump up to a higher round to get the greater amount of money. So some of them may have done that, and that thereby bypassing the 8 round. Get past the 8.
That's been helpful. Yes, sir. Any other questions? We're going to close on you again unless Senator McClendon has another question. We'll take you into another budget for us. So we appreciate you, and we'll move on to the Fire Academy now. If you would
Thank you.
ask them in as you're headed out. That would have ended things a lot quicker when it gave you your chance.
sir. Good to see you.
Okay, so welcome, and what we've been doing is we've been allowing you just a minute to introduce your group. Tell us a little bit about what you do and what your requested needs are. If you would, push the little button there and light up green and lead off.
All right. Hey, well, thank you for having us. Hey, my name is Kelly Elliott. I'm the executive director for the Mississippi State Fire Academy. And the team members I brought with me today here that you see around the room is Barry Burnside, who's the deputy director of instructional staff. We have Matt Hinkle there, who's our chief of strategic advancement and operations. Beside him, we have Marcus Collier, who's one of our instructor chiefs, Shannon Sandridge, which is one of our instructor chiefs, Nick Reagan, which is one of our instructor chiefs. Hiding in the corner over there is Miss Christy Johnson, which is our administrative services supervisor. And then hiding beside her in the corner over there is Miss Cindy Stevenson, which is our HR manager. So, hey, we are here to obviously present our appropriation ask. And what we do for the state of Mississippi is we train all of the fire service personnel throughout the cities and counties and industrial facilities that come to us for training statewide, and folks from outside the state lines if we have enough room to allow them in. When we look at our numbers, that number typically fluctuates a little bit, but it's anywhere probably from touching 12 to 15,000 students a year. And statutorily, any new incoming firefighter has to be trained within that first year. There's a little caveat there if they have some military duty or something else that goes along with there. So we have a pretty high demand. We've done kind of a schedule that's taking care of the state as a whole and the county predominantly for a long time. And we're looking at making some changes over the next year or so that allows us to address some of that demand that's out there that maybe we're having a little more ask coming from the departments than we've had in the past. So if you'd like me to start going through. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually talk about the items here that we have asked for an increase over our LBO recommendation. And I'll give you a little bit of a background on this. And I'm sure you hear this a lot, and it's kind of a hot topic nowadays when you start looking at Department of Public Safety, first responders in general. I'm also in the Air National Guard. So when you look at military personnel, we're having a little bit of a recruitment and retention problem. So part of the demand that we have that comes to the Fire Academy for a lot of those trainees that we need to get put back out to the cities and counties every day is because of the volunteerism, the actual will to serve in this type of capacity is not there like it used to be. A little bit of background, myself and Deputy Director Burnside here, who was already a member at the Academy, just came into the leadership roles about 7 months ago. And so we've been kind of trying to uncover everything, look at everything as far as what we need to do for the future and make sure that we're ahead of the game for recruitment and retention. And usually when you recognize you got a recruitment and retention problem, it's a little bit late. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to jump on that. So just to kind of tell you how that ties in with the fire departments is that's where we get our staff. We want the best of the best to come to the Fire Academy and be instructors because we know those cities and counties and industrial facilities deserve that from us when they send their people to us. So we can't just take a off the street recruit to do that. In doing so, Matt, do we have that other handout? Will you give them both of those? Yes, in doing so, what we've done is we've asked for a little over $700,000 increase over the LBO amount, recommended amount. And what that does is it allows us to give salary progressions. I know you guys are familiar with State Personnel Board and the SEC square market value. I'm sure you hear that term a lot in these type meetings. And we've historically been pretty low up under the market value when you start looking at our staff members, and we're trying to play catch up there. So part of that progression there is, you look at the second sheet of the handout there, starting out at salary and fringe benefits, the base amount was $4,800,535. So to begin with, when I talk about us looking to do a model at the Academy that addresses the demand of the fire service, we're looking at restructuring our staff members a little bit. So that first item there talks about an instructor advance moving to a program specialist team leader. We don't have a lot of supervisor roles at the Fire Academy. We have 4 bureaus. So we have a bureau that teaches certification, which is basically your firefighter type courses. We have a bureau that teaches special industrial, which is all the hazmat, rope rescue, those things you see people hanging off the side of the building doing the cool stuff type classes. We have an EMS bureau, which teaches more of the advanced medical service for your first responders, your EMT, your advanced life support type classes. And then we have the extension services, which reaches out a little bit more to the volunteer side in the field. So in doing so, we want to convert some of our advanced, which is everyone can go to that. They just have to do the time and meet the qualifications. We want to convert 6 of those slots to instructor supervisors. The reason that's important is right now we have 1 supervisor role over each bureau, and that's the chiefs that are in this room. So if those personnel are out, or if that span of control starts getting too big because of the staff members they have on them or under them, they don't have that second person for the span of control as far as the supervisor role goes. So we just want to upgrade that position to make more supervisors for those bureaus. The one I was talking about earlier when it talks about salary progressions is we are fighting fire departments in a sense of fire departments are having to pay their people better. They're having to pay their people more. And that has an impact on us because when the entry level person that we accept that really works out for us to be able to come in and do the minimum for the fire service in that classroom is someone that's got about 6 to 8 years of experience. So we need a person that's probably been at their department about 6 to 8 years. And if you live in North Mississippi or South Mississippi, it's hard to get that person to uproot and come and work for us because they're established, they work a shift, they got part-time jobs, they got families in schools, they got family land, and they don't really want to uproot their people to come to their family to come to us and take these jobs. When we don't pay them as much as the fire department, it magnifies that problem. So we do get a lot of folks from the metro area that kind of help our department or the fire academy that kind of helps our staffing, but we don't get the best of the best from all over the state. So for an example, when you look at this handout, if you kind of look at some of those department starting salaries there, a starting firefighter, I believe that's Oxford, Mississippi, is $58,500. Right now we're advertising a starting staff instructor for $54,000. All right, so we're up under what a firefighter is. Just kind of put that into perspective. When that 18-year-old firefighter steps foot in that classroom at the fire academy, he's got an instructor teaching him that makes less than him, and he's got thousands of hours of education, and that kid has nothing. That's his first class ever. When you look at those other numbers on the state right there, those are our ideal people that we want to recruit. So when you look at a fire department, the ideal people that we want to recruit are the members that have that 6 to 8 years of experience. It's the one that you want to be handling the training for your fire department. It's the one that you want in charge of that truck when it goes out on an emergency. It's the one that you want to be at that department, to be in charge, to be that mature person with that supervisory level of experience. That's what we need at the fire academy. So if you look at those numbers, it's hard to get that person to come to us. So that's really part of where we're trying to get our salary progression to go to. The other part of the recruitment and retention, and this is our heaviest piece, is our retention is good. Once we get them there, the culture is awesome. Once we get them there, we have them. But that's also been a little bit of a problem of ours because about 40% of our staff could retire. So, we're a 60-person agency. About 30 of those are instructors. About 30 of that is admin support staff. And when you look at the agency as a whole, and you start looking at the way the PERS system works and vacation, roughly 40% of our people could retire between now and the next 2 or 3 years. So if you look at the other graph at the bottom of the recruitment and retention sheet there, you'll see how our applications have fared against as far as the instructor applications versus the people hired. And you can see a tremendous drop off from 2014 over the last 10 years. So we just recently conducted another pool and we had 2 applicants. Okay. And those 2 applicants barely met the minimum to get in the door. And I know right now I've got 4 people leaving between now and June, and probably another 4, 5, or 6 that's considering it just because they've got the time. They've got their 25 years, they've got their 30 years, and they're looking to take that next step, whether it's retirement and go fishing, or whether it's get that second job and do what they want to do after this retirement is complete. So just kind of want to ring the alarm on that. That's kind of why our big ask is there when it comes to recruitment and retention. I will tell you, I'm still in the Air National Guard. I just came from Joint Force Headquarters this morning, and we're talking about the same thing there. When I look at our units around the state, firefighters are short. And it's because they're going to other jobs and they're getting other pay. They're going to these federal jobs. There's just other opportunities out there. So it's not just here, it's everywhere you look. It's kind of a shortage. So it kind of magnifies the problem of us getting them to come to us. So we have the best of the best to teach your people in your jurisdiction and make sure that they can deliver when that bell rings, when they get called back out. Any questions on that? I kind of beat on that horse probably a little too long. All right. Hey, so we'll move down the line here. 5 additional head count. So if you look at D there, this includes a new instructor, a maintenance tech, a curriculum director, an administrative support assistant for that curriculum director, and a client support technician. If you can imagine the way the Fire Academy has kind of changed over the years and needs to change moving forward, they made a lot of improvements and changes when the COVID era hit because they needed to get classes out to the field because folks couldn't come to the academy itself. So we're doing field courses, we're doing hybrid courses, we're doing online courses, we're doing in-residence courses. So our courses are accredited. They're accredited through third-party entities like ProBoard and IFSAC, which basically puts a stamp on the approval on those courses. It says, hey, these courses meet the national standards of what firefighters should be trained to. And in doing so, that's where those curriculum positions are important. Right now, we have that spread out over our bureaus to handle making sure that the curriculum is updated. Usually on the National Fire Protection Association standard, you have changes probably every 4 to 5 years. And it takes our people being on top of that to make sure that we meet it. We continually change test banks, course deliveries, meet the national standard. So when that person goes out and performs that job on that emergency scene and somebody wants to try to, come at them and with some type of legal, we get, our documents, their documents, we get looked at to make sure that they were trained the proper way. So what I like to say there is we got people handling it, but we want people that's their only job. Right now, that's kind of spread out. And my folks get tired of me saying this quote here, but the quote I always like to throw in there is when everybody's in charge, nobody's in charge. So we need somebody in charge of that because of the importance of it and making sure that program is taken care of and we don't lose that accreditation. You start moving on down to the line there, the extra instructor, that's going to allow us to kind of pick our industrial program back up a little bit. That would go into our special industrial bureau. Over the years, when we went from a special fund agency to a general fund agency, and some of our staff got moved around a little bit to create other bureaus, we had to drop off on the way that we do classes for the industrial facilities that come to us. That's got to meet the OSHA requirements. It's got to meet those other requirements. And so what we do nowadays is we prioritize Mississippi companies. We have people that try to come to us from Louisiana, Alabama, Texas, all over. So right now we put a priority on Mississippi companies because we know there's an economic piece there that we need to take care of also. Coming on down, there's a maintenance tech 3. That position is someone else that we can put in the shop because we have a lot of compliance items that have to meet standards. They have to meet those regulations that come out at the federal level. So, whether it's our heat building, whether it's our fire trucks, whether it's the air packs that people wear, there's a lot of compliance and annual requirements that go along with that. So we're trying to put somebody back on that. It historically was a 2-person shop. It's a 1-person shop right now, and we're trying to make it a 2-person shop again. And what am I missing there, Barry? Was there another one? Curriculum director, administrative support, client support technician, information technology. All right, so we're a little bit antiquated in the way we do business. We're moving forward. Like I said, during the COVID era, we had to step up the game when it came to IT, and we have a lot of students that do computer-based training in the field without coming to the academy. Between the electronic support that we need at the Fire Academy, we need somebody as basically a help desk for us. Right now, we have a 2-person IT shop. we need a 3-person IT shop to be able to field those requests that the instructors need in the classroom, to be able to field those requests for those student logins when they're trying to log in and do their courses online. And that would help us out a lot right there. The others are basically already in that typical salary and fringe, you know, your typical workman's comp and employee EAP.
You can skip on down. I want to get down in the interest of time.
Yep.
Let's get down to your structural fire facility simulators, because that was something that I saw in reviewing the budget that I wanted just a
Yes,
little
sir.
quick information on and the need there.
Yes, sir. So we have the 2 heat buildings, as we call them, at the fire academy. They're structural fire simulators. They're gas fed. They're computer operated. And the facility we're talking about here has 5 different props in it. It's a multi-story building. It's set up to be like any type of structure that you need to train a firefighter on. And it's about 18 years old. So if you can imagine anywhere between 500, 600, 700, 800, 900 degrees of heat with steel over and over again and concrete over and over again and computer equipment at the same time with sensors throughout, we've been having a lot of trouble out of it. So we're trying to retrofit that prop, that facility with new equipment throughout every burn facility room that it has. So again, there's 5 different pieces of that. It's operated from a computer control room, and roughly $2 million is a one-time fee of what it would take for the company to come in and retrofit that and replace the equipment.
And you expect that to last a similar amount of time?
Similar amount of time. You know, it's when people come to the fire academy, you know, 80, 90% of the time, that's what they're coming for. So when it goes down, it kind of puts a little bit of a chink in our plans on training the folks. So about the same amount of age, we definitely expect to get out of it. It's another one of those things. We're going to have elevated maintenance fees, and we have to fly in people from the company a lot of times to come work on it.
So jumping to the next page, 75,000 for a vehicle request.
Yes, sir. That's a carryover. So that was we're having a rescue truck built, and that is a carryover because the vehicles, the supply chain system, logistics, it's taken about 2 or 3 years to build a fire truck at this point. So it's just a carryover for that reason. It was in last year's budget.
And the last 2 items here on the capital outlay equipment.
So the excavator in there, we do a lot of what you call trench rescue classes. We move a lot of vehicles around, buses around for extrication classes. And that's where we're training folks on the advanced techniques of removing people out of trench that is dug in like construction sites. We train people in advanced techniques for doing auto extrication, and we need basically an excavator to be able to dig that out when those classes are delivered and move equipment around and move vehicles around.
And then the last item is about the roof and the electric water.
It is. So the academy is 50 years old. And you know, the auditorium obviously is not quite that old, but the roof, we're having some roof leaks there. And between the roof that needs to be repaired and some of the damage that the roof leaks have done, it's where we host our graduations. It's where we have a lot of our big events. It's been estimated it's going to take about that much to actually replace that roof. The water system, if you can imagine, the primary thing that makes that academy operate is the heat buildings, the gas fed props that are concrete and steel that are fuel fed and have water fed to them. So we have a pump house with multiple lakes, and we pump a lot of water out there for all the training has to be done. And that system is pretty antiquated. In fact, when some of the guys are on the pads and those pipes start creaking, they get worried. But we've been having a lot of trouble out of it, and we need to get that taken care of, because when that goes down, we can't do anything. I think there was one other item that I kind of wanted to touch on the contractual services. We have a computer system that's coming in that's actually in review. I think there's an ITS meeting Thursday to kind of go over the contract, and the fee there is kind of a recurring fee. So if you can imagine, we had network individuals years ago that built everything that we do for registration, for invoicing, for transcripts, you name it. It was built in-house. Those folks have since left. That system is mandated. When it goes down, it probably can't be fixed. And we have that system coming in, and some of that's going to be recurring fees and one-time fees to get the licensing done this year. And it's going to make life a lot easier. It's going to take care of a lot of the paperwork that goes on, where we won't be doing a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of manual files and folders. And it's going to allow students and departments out in the field to pull their own transcripts, potentially do some training from their department through that system, and really open up the door to kind of move us forward.
So I'll just say you certainly have a lot of needs. You have a lot of things you're asking for. And, as you know, this process, or as you're learning this process, we have that, from a lot of different agencies. I think what would be helpful to me when we have this many would be, some degree of just a prioritization of things. When we have in here, the $2 million request, and then we have a roof request, and we have other things that are there, I would love to say we're going to be able to fund all of these, but I can't say that. So if perhaps you could get that to Corbin and Emily, and just put like a prioritization on that.
We'll do it.
I think that would be some degree of a help in looking at this. But any questions for the Fire Academy? Yes, sir.
There.
Good.
I'm more of in some ways, a multi-year planner, at least with the businesses I operate. And, if we can, certainly, I think this committee would love to get every single need you have here met, but it would be, a false promise to tell you that we could do all that at one time. So I think a plan of how we might move in that direction would be excellent, to Senator Butler's comment on things. So, Senator McClendon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did MDA approach y'all at all about the Marshall County EV project? And if not, does special training have to go to those firefighters for electric battery? I know, a firefighting of airplane is different than firefighting an LP burn. That's different than fighting a oil well burn. That's different than fighting a train derailment. Is that in the budget or in the works of planning to train firefighters for that in the future, similar to what Chairman Parker was talking about?
Yes, sir. I tell you, I'd like to refer to Chief Sandridge about Marshall County. Do you know if we've been approached about?
I'm familiar with the project director, but no. Those are, that's what you're speaking of. There's some things that are out.
Also no national. Even Europe, we had an executive fire officer class last year that did an extensive research project on that. Europe and America are both undecided on how to address that particular problem. It is in our courses, it's in our programs, but there's no good best practice yet.
Because that area, we're talking about volunteer firemen. That aren't full-time firefighters.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, will we have to wait for there's a national standard to come out before we will do something as a state? Or how does that work? Would that be on y'all's radar or should that be on the insurance departments?
I think there's in a field like that that's evolving and coming forward, we're always looking at what a best practice might be, whether it's going to seminars, whether it's going to conferences, and trying to bring that back and injecting it in our different deliveries that we do right now. Now that may change as time goes on. From the time a student comes to the basic class or a volunteer class or to a company officer class or the more advanced courses, as that information starts flowing in and best practices start occurring, our folks are really good about injecting what's known at that time and what's starting to take place through whether it's magazines, seminars, or whatever it may be. Yes, sir.
Senator McClendon, as part of the investment that y'all made in that project, there were costs for a new fire station to be built. So I guess there will be a fire station there. So
We appreciate you being here. Unless Christie and the people in the back want to chime in and share, I don't think they do. You have any question, Corbin?
yes, sir. So last session, y'all received $160,000 for the completion of the dorm room project. So is the $250,000 in addition? Is that just the roof over the dorm?
That's auditorium, so it's separate from the dorm. The auditorium is where we do graduations and we have bigger events if people want to come in.
Okay.
And have big meetings or whatever it may be.
Okay. Did y'all finish that dorm room project? Because I know that
has
there
not been
was
finished at this point. I mean, part of that money, my understanding was it's to finish furnishing the building and complete some of the rooms. And we've been having a little bit of trouble as far as the completion of the rooms part, as far as construction goes.
Yeah.
But it should be executed definitely by the end of this year.
okay.
Or FY.
Well, if those funds aren't utilized this fiscal year and there's not a reappropriation in your bill to carry them forward, then they'll lapse back
Yes, sir.
into the capital expense fund. So if there's any concern about it not getting finished, then let us know and we can add a section for a reappropriation. And then as far as the $75,000 for purchase of a vehicle, how long do you think that will take with the I know you said you were ordering one and it was in process.
I think the last time we checked, it was actually supposed to start being built this year.
Okay, so we got a couple of years.
Our estimated delivery date is within this fiscal year.
Okay, all right, thank you.
It's not as quite as hard to build as a pumper or a ladder truck, so it's a little quicker, but still taking time.
Emily has a question here.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman. When we visited this summer, you had reported that there was a private donation that was seeding the new software system. And I just wondered, has that fund source been exhausted now?
It has not.
Okay.
So that's you're speaking of the Bardsley money.
Yes, sir.
And so I don't have all the details on that money right here in front of me. Matt, you may be able to speak to it. You were here last year. But we're utilizing it for some upgrades on some things in classrooms and that we utilize for graduations or presentations or seminars. I do know it's going toward that. Paul Ammerman, who's normally with us, is on his way back from India today. So he has a little bit more detail on that, but I can get that back to you.
Thank you.
I have one more, I guess, follow-up question. In your bill, I think last year there was $235,000 in special funds. So that's for grant funds or federal funds. So out of the request, is this all general funds or is it special funds increases?
Are you the 235? Are you speaking? Is that part of the 160 that you're looking at?
Yeah. So I think the 235 was the special funds for the capital expense that was appropriated last year. So if you need the ability to spend special funds or federal funds, you're going to need to ask for special fund authority.
Okay.
So that's for like those grants, the donations, any type of funds.
That the 235 I'm referencing here was the 160 and the 75 for the truck that needed to be carried over.
Yeah. So if you were to receive grant funds or special funds and you want to spend them next year, the only way is to have them in that special fund category. So yeah.
I think that's it. We appreciate your time and
Thank you.
looking into this more. And I think between the three of us, we have all the information we need.
All right.
So,
Hey, thank you.
thank you.
Yes, sir. I didn't know if they have to do, like, electric battery fire.
Yeah.
In that plant, if they have to do.
I'm sure that they're gonna do something, but I guess that's a. Hey, Central Park, how
Well,
are
Corbin
you?
said, oh, sorry, never mind, you got preempted. We were on our way, so. Did we lose everybody else? Well, the important one's here, right?
Yours should be quick. We're gonna try to. Get up to 3 o'clock.
Had a long day, afternoon, huh?
A little long, so just for purposes of the people in the room, if you would just introduce yourself and tell us your needs and what's going on with the dental board.
Okay. So my name is Denny Heydrich. I'm the executive director of the dental board. So I got a summary of our request there in front of you, but we were asking a couple things. One, for a deficit spending authority for fiscal year 24. And the amount for that spending is deficit $320,000. It breaks down this way. 230,000 is a request for a new computer database licensing management system. The system that we are currently using is just not going to work long-term for licensing purposes. And so we want to move to the same system that's used by the Board of Pharmacy, Medical Board, and Nursing Board. So it has a presence in Mississippi, and we think it will be more than adequate for our needs. In addition, our current lease for our office space expires June 30th of 2024. And so that was not anticipated for the fiscal year 24 budget of a potential move. And so we are requesting a one-time or additional spending authority of $65,000 for that relocation. And then the last request is for $25,000 for our contract permit holders to complete facility inspections. The board passed a new regulation back in 2022,
And it requires current permit holders to go out and actually inspect facilities, dental offices where advanced anesthesia services are being performed. And so we need to be able to cover those expenses and costs. And so that's the deficit spending request. We're asking that, be authorized through June 30th of 2025, $320,000. Of that, if it is approved, 207,000 and let's see, $207,201 can be removed from the fiscal year 25 budget request for the dental board due to those being a one-time.
What was that amount again?
207, 201.
And then Charlie was telling me out in the hall, you talked about your recurring request here as well. Some for staff and some for the ongoing types of
Right,
requests. Could you-
potential increase in licensing for that database system, yearly management fee.
Got a 3% raise for staff.
That's right, yes, sir. In the last section of the report I handed you will address some of the ways that we plan to increase the revenue moving forward. The regulation regarding the facility inspections, unfortunately, they left out a application and permit fee from that regulation. So we plan to add that, and that will eventually, moving forward, generate the revenue to cover those costs in the future, as well as just a review of our current fee structures with any adjustments that may be needed.
So Charlie, you can probably help me on this agency revenue source report that I have here. It shows Mississippi State Board of Dental Examiners here, but shows Mississippi Board of Pharmacy for PMP. Down here, I was confused by that.
You want me to address that?
Sure.
So 3 other agencies actually pay the Board of Pharmacy for the use of their controlled substance, PMP.
Okay.
So the dentist, all the dentists in the state use the PMP.
Okay.
And then they pay 105, I can't remember which one yet. One of the agencies pays, well, the medical board pays it, dental board pays it, and nursing board pays it.
Shared special funds.
So each of their bills,
It has to be in the appropriation because agencies aren't allowed to pay other agencies under the Budget Transparency Act. So it's,
So that doesn't give us a good number for what their dollars in versus dollar.
that is not revenue, that's an expense.
Okay. What their,
yes,
like
I
their
think they
cash
go-
on hand is.
yes, the cash on hand is.
It's
1,062,000.
1.570, 1.57 at the end of July, end of January. And they're collecting about $1 million every year. Yeah, over $1 million.
That was my main question, was just making sure that where that number was right there. So are there any other questions from the committee? Senator Butler?
I need to step up the second sheet. This request is a current request. Is this 179 above LBL?
So that 179,300 is what's currently in fiscal year 25. And so that amount could be subtracted from the fiscal year 25 budget if the 230 is approved. So.
Oh, okay. That would be for all.
And that was a one-time, it's just a one-time expenditure for the database system.
Okay. And it will apply to all 3 of these.
Well, the two of them, that last, the facility inspection funds, that's going to be an ongoing expense. a new expense. But we hope to, by the end of the middle to the end of fiscal year 25, to add an application and permit fee, which will generate the revenue to cover. But we included in fiscal year 25 budget $50,000 to cover those inspection costs. We did not have any for the fiscal year 24, so that's where the 25,000 is coming in that we're asking for.
So Corbin had a good request here that we had a line item that included kind of with and without the deficit in there. You know, just if you can have something prepared where we could kind of see, kind of,
we can do that.
That actually in a more transparent and easier to visualize kind of manner. I think that would be a help. Get to show the offset, so to speak.
So like salaries, contractual, what the budget would be with.
We've given it to Charlie.
Yeah, my understanding is that when you separate out the deficit, their ongoing request is going to be about $40,000. Of that, 16.5 is for the 3% they raised. And then 23.5 is contractual, and that's going to be partially for an increase in rent that's anticipated. Also for the ongoing hosting fees for the new system that they come up with.
That's right. So your base budget would be the same as us, except in contractual and in salaries. And we're asking for the 3%, 4% increase, 3% increase. And then we're asking for 23,500 above base in contractual.
And my understanding is they're going to ask for from, after, and through for this. So some of the deficit they'll be able to use in 25. That's something the legislature wants to do.
That would be helpful. And one of the reasons they want that deficit that I don't know that you went into, but the computer system, they would like to go ahead and get it started now or as fast as they can, because their renewal cycle hits in September, and it's going to be a 4 to 6 month implementation. So they don't have time enough to get out of the old system and get the new system started before the renewal.
We have about 6,000 licenses and permits that have to renew starting September the 1st, which is our largest renewal year. So we would like to implement that system by September 1st.
And if we have to wait till July, it can't be implemented for that renewal. And the same is true with his lease. If he doesn't get the deficit for the lease, then he'll have to have dual rent because as he's moving. So if we could go ahead and get him out of the space ahead of time and be ready to move July 1, that would be very beneficial.
Well, we currently have our request for a lease proposal is out and submitted. So I'm still receiving, responses to that. Friday is the deadline. So after Friday, I can open those proposals and make a determination.
So any other questions? If they're not, we appreciate all the information, the updated information.
Appreciate
Look
your
forward to
time. Thank you.
working with you on this. And
Corbin, do you still want to submit you for the handout with the without the deficit? Or have you got it? Okay.
Okay.
We can do that.
okay, so you were the agency we were looking forward to the most today. The last one.
The last one.
You know, the Board of Psychology and the PERS Administrative Building did not choose to meet. So we think they evidently have everything that they need for the next year. So is there a motion? Rise and report.
Thank you for your